Right. So it's not going to be very long. It's just a few questions. Let's just start for the recording. Like, what's your name? Where have you worked? What do you play, etc.
Okay. I'm going to just start talking, or you want to ask me, or how do you?
You could just start talking if it's easier.
Okay. My name is Mike Campbell. I was a jazz singer and a vocal professor, I guess you would say. I headed the vocal departments at the Dick Grove School of Music for 10 years. And then I had the vocal department at Musicians Institute for 22 years, and then just taught there for the last 3 or 4 years. As a jazz singer, I've got, I think, 9 CDs out there. Different labels, Palo Alto, ITI, Audiophile, and geez, I opened for Ravon, I opened for Benny Carter. I started in a group called the Doodletown Pipers, and we had our own television special. Ed Sullivan produced it. We did it at Sullivan Studios. Geez, we worked with everybody, Carol Burnett, Joel Gray. We opened for Frank Sinatra at one time. Worked with all my idols, worked with Ella Fitzgerald on the Ed Sullivan Show. Wow. So I had a long career. I'm still a member of SAG-AFTRA and a lifetime member. I have retired, and I guess that's enough info.
Yeah, that's about my first 5 questions there already answered.
Okay.
That's great, but it's, basic info. So these first couple questions are going to be more about work and economics. So I just want to ask, what was or is the biggest source of revenue in your career, and do you still see money coming from it today?
The biggest source of revenue actually was my teaching career. Teaching saved my life, to be honest. When I started in the business, I started with that group, the Doodletown Pipers. We worked a ton. And one year we worked 47 weeks out of the year. We traveled all over the country and out of the country, and we did a lot of television stuff. Then when I left the group and went out on my own, there were some very challenging years financially. I was out of work for a year. I finally got my first gig as a solo artist. As a jazz singer, I certainly didn't make enough money to buy a house or things like that. Teaching is really how I made my living, and I was lucky enough, incredibly lucky, to be at the Dick Grove School of Music, like I said, for 10 years. And then when that closed, man, it was scary times. and I was still, I was teaching privately, still doing gigs. But I didn't have that, that steady paycheck happening. And then about 3 or 4 months later, I got the call from Musicians Institute, and they were looking for a new department, new chairman for the vocal department. And they hired me. And again, it was that steady, I had a check every week. And then everything else was sort of gravy on top of that. So it's a difficult business.
Yeah,
it's a very challenging business, and it's changed so much in my lifetime. I mean, honestly, I barely recognize it anymore. Today, you're either, Beyonce or Adele, and you're making, gazillions of dollars, or you're starving. The other acts, there used to be clubs, literally thousands of clubs from San Diego to San Francisco out here in California. It was almost hard to be out of work. There were chains. I worked at this Jolly Roger chain. It was a restaurant that had probably 20 or 30 different restaurants up and down the coast. And they had entertainment. So I worked 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week. I worked 7 nights a week for 8.5 months once. So it was a lot of work. And that's how I made a down payment for the house more than anything else. Difficult business. Now
Yeah.
everybody, because of, Napster, which turned into, these different listening, where the
Streaming,
artists
music streaming.
stream. Yeah, I mean, they make no money. It really is just should be against the law, the way artists and composers are treated. So they're on the road. They're on the road, 50 weeks a year. It's a difficult, challenging.
And I want to touch on that more, how that feeling that you don't know like how much you're gonna get each month, or not having a steady paycheck. Was that a theme for you a lot throughout your career? I know that when you studied or when you were teaching, you had a steady career or like a steady paycheck, but before that, or even after the first school closed, what I'm trying to ask is, was that like a big part of your career, a big theme?
Oh, it was, yes, huge part. It's not knowing where that, that next paycheck was going to be. At that time, like I said, there was a lot of work. We didn't really know it was sort of, a golden age. There's a ton of casuals, private parties, bar mitzvahs, weddings, corporation parties. I actually got out of clubs because I was making more money doing casuals. We do 4 or 5 a weekend. Do 1 Friday night, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. And so I was making more money in 3 days than I was making working 6, 7 days a week in clubs. So of course I love that. And I was home much more, and I love that. But yes, it's a struggle. Emotionally, it's very, very challenging. Because every job ends, even when you were working in clubs and working for chains of restaurants, sooner or later they're going to make a change. They want to bring somebody new in, try something different, and you're always looking for that next job. And in those days, a lot of times you would have to go and audition for these chains, kind of go in and do your act, what you do, and they liked you, they hired you, and you got to work. But yeah, I think it's a musician's, we certainly don't get into it for the money. I certainly didn't get into it for the money. I always thought of it sort of, it's a calling. It's sort of, you choose it, it chooses you. I mean, it's, who knows, but it's just something you have to do. Art is something you just have that need to do, and you hope you can make enough money to, live, have a decent apartment, have 3 meals a day, and have that roof over your head. But there were many days, weeks, months, years where that was incredibly difficult, and of course it's incredibly stressful when you don't know where the money's coming from, and if it's coming at all. And that's what I think artists of any field face going into this career. I've had a lot of friends ask me, certainly since I retired, what would you tell students today? Would you, recommend going into this business? I mean, I didn't recommend going into this business when I was in the business. It's insanity. But I mean, I feel I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet because I got to do what I wanted to do and love to do, which I think so few people actually get to do. So many people, graduate from college and never get to work in the field they graduated in, because there aren't any jobs, or there's only a few jobs. thousands of people going for those jobs. So it's, I got to do, wow. I think I'm one of the few who really, I love to go to work every day. I love to go to work every night. It wasn't always peaches and cream, but I always felt lucky because it was my choice and my chosen field. And it brought me so much emotionally and it brought me a little financially. So it's, but enough to, keep food on the table.
Mm. So what you could say is that what was rewarding about your career, about the work you did, was certainly not the money, but rather the, I would assume, the creative aspect of it, or the social. So if you could like kind of list what was most rewarding for you.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely was rewarding on so many levels. Plus, working, you always want to work with people who are better than you. It lifts you up. It makes you work harder. It challenges you. I mean, I got to work some of my idols. I got to work with, Ella, Sinatra, Mel Torme. Those are my three big idols. I got to work with some of the greatest musicians on the planet. And all of that just continued to lift me off the ground emotionally. And yeah, I think any artist in any, whether you're a painter or dancer or whatever, that's the true payoff. Yes, we need to make a living. Yes, I have nothing against money, but that is not the thing that drives you.
Mm.
It's the creativeness. It's always striving to get better, working with great players, great singers, great dancers, whatever. Wow, it was an absolute joy from that end.
And if we just kind of flip on it for a second, did you ever find yourself displeased with anything in your career? It could have been a work environment, it could have been income, it could have been, fellow employees or so. Just anything that you really did not like, and did you do anything to change it?
I don't think this interview is going to be long enough for that.
We have
I
time.
think all artists could go on and on about the garbage they have to face, even when you're working in great situations. There's always, whether it's it's a club owner where the checks bouncing. I work one of the most famous jazz clubs, well, certainly in California, Dante's, legendary jazz club. And my first gig there, we were doing an NPR broadcast, and so we did 3 nights, and the check bounced, and I had to pay I had a quartet, and I certainly had to pay all the guys, first of all. And the owner of the club, who really was a good guy, he was actually an ex dancer and choreographer, should have never owned a jazz club. But there he was, and he just, it did the check bounce. He made good on it. Took about 2 weeks, a lot of phone calls, but he finally, got the money together, and we got paid. All kinds of things. I mean, working at the Dick Grove School in MI, there is the politics of working, at any job, whether it's educational job or corporations or whatever. Everybody wasn't always on the same page, or were there for different reasons. So there's always stressful situations. If the attendance at the school is down, it's the teacher's fault. It's the program director's fault. It's never the owner's fault. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this through the years. I mean, it really is not really any different than working for IBM or Sony or, corporations. Politics in the workplace is there, always is, always will be. You do the best you can, and then somebody comes in and says, no, I think you're doing a lousy job. Then you have to, whatever, fight for your job and make changes and all that kind of stuff. On, working in clubs, you got hecklers, you got, club managers who think they run the world, and they're running a club that seats 50 people. It's you run into egos. I had a club, oh my God, one of my favorite stories. Place called the Vine Street Bar and Grill, famous place. I mean, people like, Joe Williams worked there, and Day, all kinds of people, Shirley Horn. It was a great club on Vine Street in Hollywood. And one night we were finishing up, and the place was about to close, and a newscaster came in with about 6 other people, and he wanted dinner, and the owner had told us to do the last set earlier. So we did it, and I was just saying goodnight, and I see the owner running up the stage and saying, no, you got to do another set. This guy just came in, and wait a minute, you've got to pay us for another set. I'm not paying you for another set. And then, ended up, he pulled a gun on me in his office. Yeah, oh yeah, that's an attention grabber.
So did you do the third set?
Did not.
You did not?
No, I told, I remember, Jesus, it was Alan Broadbent, Joe DeBartolo, and Peter Donald, 3 incredible musicians and wonderful guys. As I was going back to, argue with him that I'm not, I just said, pack up, get out of here. So they did as quick as possible. And so I didn't have any musicians to do the third set. And it was a horror show. So, I mean, yes, there's always, you have these things, you're booked for a place and you show up and it's the wrong week. The agent booked the wrong week. I told you that actually happened to me. The club in San Diego. I showed up, I was doing a duo at the time. And there was a group setting up on stage. Excuse me. And they said, we're playing here this week. So I picked up the phone, and it was the wrong week. We were supposed to be there the next week, but the agent made the mistake. Those kind of things happen. So anything you can imagine going wrong, yeah, it will. At some time or another, it'll go wrong.
You play for long enough,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's kind of nuts. It really is kind of nuts. We did a thing with, with your dad, with the, I don't know if I'm pronouncing right, Orebro. I think it's Orobro.
Örebro.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there for the Jazz and Blues Festival up in, I can't think of the city. About 10 minutes and you're in.
Near Örebro, Jazz and Blues Festival.
Yeah, at the top of not PDO, it's past PDO.
Umeå or Luleå.
What is it? I think that's the airport.
Yeah, Luleå is the airport. But was it Haparanda?
Haparanda, thank you.
Yeah, it was Haparanda.
Haparanda. And the band leader for it's a famous band in Sweden, like a jazz orchestra.
It's a Norrbotten Big Band.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Norrbotten Big Band. And their conductor, he wasn't going to let my conductor and piano player conduct the band. So your dad had to convince him that they weren't, I wasn't going to sing and Tom wasn't going to play if Tom didn't conduct. And this little guy had a real ego problem. We call it a Napoleon complex. That conversation went on for a good hour. And finally, Tom conducted. And because this guy didn't, he didn't know my charts. You could look at them and read them, but there's tempo changes and blah, blah, blah. And we had come from LA up to Haparanda, and my piano player and conductor wasn't going to just sit around and watch. I mean, we had done other concerts on that tour. And of course, he played and conducted all of them. So yeah, you just run into stuff that you can't even imagine. But yeah, it will happen. And then all of this stuff is stressful, and then you have to refocus. Remember, it's about the music. Forget all that and go out and do a show, do a performance.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of forget the money, do it for what's fun, let's go back to the money, actually. Because because I wanted to ask just one final thing before we move on to the next subject. Let's say you never teached, or all you did was gigs or record sales, because I know you did a lot of records. Do you think you could have adequately supported yourself with just that?
No.
Why?
Wow. Why?
Okay, what was it that it wasn't enough money, or was it just too much work for too little?
It's a very good question. I mean, the answer is easy, but the how to articulate the why I couldn't have made a living. Well, number one, I was a jazz. I was a jazz singer. Jazz is a difficult road at best. You can probably name the people who actually make a reasonably good living. I mean, there's so few. I certainly was not a good business person at all. So I also was not an aggressive business person. I had a manager, still my probably closest friend, who worked his tail off. But Mel Torme was still alive. He got all the good gigs. He got all the good money. But male jazz singers, it just, it was Mel, it was Joe Williams, it was, and then later on in this century, then Curtin came along, and somebody like Gregory Porter, who's a great jazz singer, but he really is doing pop material. He's not doing jazz material. There's just so few, terrific jobs, and basically those names do all those jobs. So the rest of it is we're working little jazz clubs wherever we can. If we eliminate teaching from the conversation, I would have had to literally go on the road and find, any kind of little jazz gigs anywhere, any place in the United States that I could find them. Maybe I could have supported myself, but I couldn't have supported my wife and my daughters. Just no, I didn't make even close to enough money. The album sales are nothing. I mean, I've made nothing. I do still get royalty checks. I still get writing checks, anywhere from truly 1 cent up to, I just got a check for like $80 for like half a year.
Mm.
So it's, buy you a couple of gallons of gas, that's about it.
Mm.
Fill your car. It's so difficult. It is so difficult. You have to be, with many of the acts and the singers and performers I like today, I mean, they're just on the road for the rest of their life.
Mm.
I loved the road when I was young and unmarried and before AIDS. You didn't have to worry about dying, if you happen
Yeah.
to be with somebody. It was such a different thing before I was married. But once there's another person in the whole process, it's just, I didn't want to be out on the road. As I got older and the teaching was doing well and I was getting more of a reputation, blah, blah, blah. I got to the point where I could go out for weekends. I could leave Friday morning, fly to a place, go and do like a clinic, a concert, and fly home Sunday. I really like that. That was just fun. And it was a break from the teaching, and it was extra money.
Mm.
And but the reality, I've got so many friends, excluding the pandemic, who really just, I mean, they live month to month.
Mm.
This month they've got, 4 gigs and they're going to make their rent. Next month they've only got 2 gigs and they don't know where they're going to get their rent. Those kind of situations. And they've been in those places for, decades.
Mm.
So, it's a very, very, very difficult. I wouldn't want my grandchildren to be musicians. I would want them to love music, have music be a somewhat large part of their life on an emotional level. I mean, I haven't lost my love for music at all. Maybe I love it even more now than I did when I was younger. I mean, I listen to it literally 7 days a week, and I have it on for 3 or 4 hours. Listen to all the different artists. It's a huge part of my life, certainly on an emotional level. It still moves me. I hear something that moves me, and it does. But to try to make a living, especially today, I mean, you have to just love it so much and understand that you're going to be very lucky to make a living. Very.
I feel like we're gonna have to take a little break here because my headphones are about to die. I can hear them; they're starting to cut out here. So if I've got a few more questions, but maybe take like a 5-10 minute break so I can get some water and get a new pair of headphones.
No problem.
All right, excellent.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I got plenty of time.
Wonderful.
Okay.
All right.
Take your time.
Yep. All right. Um, is this working? Can you hear me? New
Yeah.
headphones. Excellent.
Okay.
Okay, now I would like to move on to a more different subject, more about the social aspect of it. To start with an easy one. Uh, were you friends with or in contact with a lot of other jazz musicians, both early in your career and still today?
Um, I would say yes. Um, my dad was a musician. My brother was a musician. Um, both professional drummers. But I majored in it in college in music. Finally got to music after a couple of other majors, and I met people, and I had a dear friend who's still one of my closest friends. She's a couple of years younger than I am, so we were in music college together, and she got me the audition for the Doodletown Pipers. Um, they had just done a Red Skelton TV show, which was one of the biggest at the time, and called her up after the show and said, "Hey, yeah, I'll do audition." So you meet people you meet in school. When I got in the business, of course, I met a lot of people, um, and worked with a ton of people. And some of them, the guitar players, I took lessons with when we were on the road, whatever city we were in. Um, you just That's a huge part of, I think, any business is networking, connecting. Um, I love to hang out, so I was always hanging. Uh, Certainly part of the jazz scene back in that day was you could go to the clubs and just, if you knew somebody, you wouldn't even have to pay the cover charge a lot of times, and you'd hang out, you'd meet people, and it's I God, I mean, I used to tell my students this because it's the truth. Other than auditioning for the Doodletown Pipers, I never got a single job in my life that I wasn't recommended for by other person, another musician, another singer. It's um, that happened to my daughter Katie too. She got the Manhattan transfer gig because uh, Cheryl in the group had gotten ill and needed a replacement. So they got somebody and they weren't happy with her. So they were going to replace her. And the guy who was subbing for Tim Hauser at the time said, "You got to get Katie Campbell." They hired her without ever hearing her on his recommendation. In fact, the first time she performed with them, it was at the Red Rocks in Colorado. That was the first time they met. They sent her charts and they sent her records and CDs, and here's the list of, I think it was 30 songs that she had learned. And so she did all that at home and walked and walked on stage. That's so much of it happens in that way. Somebody says, I can't do this. Call Loki, call Hari, call Mike Campbell. They'll do a great job for you. That's how I got pretty much a job, including my teaching jobs. Those came from recommendations of people at the school. And so that's a huge part of it. And I would think that's a huge part of it, most any kind of work, networking. You're starting to hear, you want to move on to the next level. You got, you talk to people, maybe you hear about other companies, blah, blah. So it's, yeah, that's a huge part. And that's also, it's, you know, a lot of it is the fun part too. Hanging out is so much fun, and I am a little biased, but just musicians, dancers, you know, I mean, just wonderful people for the most part. I mean, you always meet jerks, they're everywhere, but most of the people are wonderful people. Uh, some of them are really messed up in so many different ways, but they're still, you know, great hearts, great souls. And yeah, that's a very, very important part of it all.
So we'd say it's very crucial.
Very crucial.
Very,
Absolutely. I mean,
uh,
if if people don't like you, for the most part, they're not going to hire you. So you got to just, you know, you just got to be a good person and a positive person, and you have to be, you know, reliable.
mm,
You know, they have to know that if they say, hey, it's, you know, the gig's at 6, be there at 4:50. Set up, relax, and then, you know, you got to just, you got to do it. You got to be there. Got to be on time. Yeah, it's all that stuff.
um,
Very crucial.
very crucial. Did did you ever feel like you were excluded from a social activity, treated unfairly, treated unpleasantly uh, by maybe other musicians, by other people? And do you think that could have something to do with your choice of profession?
Have something to do with my what?
Your choice of profession, you know, being a musician.
Uh, Certainly not at the beginning. Everything was, I mean, everybody was kind, encouraging, supportive. Um, but like I said, you know, you do run into jerks. You do run into ego problems. You know, those things happen
Mm,
in any field, any business. Uh, Obviously, doing what we do, whether we're actors or singers or dancers or musicians, it's hey, look at me. You know,
mm,
there's ego there. Uh, so hopefully you have that under control, and your ego, in a sense, is a positive thing.
mm,
Like have the confidence, but you know, not that overconfidence, you know, BS. Real confidence. You know,
mm,
you can do the job and you'll do it well. Um, yeah, but through, you know, through a career, you know, you meet people who, for whatever reason, they don't like you. No, they don't think you're any good. Wrong guy for the job. I mean, that's all a part of it. It's all a part of life, and you try to, you know,
mm.
be who you are and stay the course. And but yeah, I mean, that's all a part of life. You can't. You can only do the best you can, and still at times you can't avoid it.
Mm. So we talk a lot about you know, jerks or unpleasant people you've met and some unpleasant employers, but has there ever been a time that you've been treated unfairly or without respect from employers uh, where it wasn't about money or work, more a social thing?
Hmm. Not that I can remember. Nothing really sticks out. Um, I mean, certainly at Musicians Institute, uh, the owner is an interesting, strange man, and has made interesting, strange decisions. Um, yeah, he can also be a charming guy too. But he made, you know, sometimes certainly you know, he was blaming myself or somebody in the guitar department or whatever, for things that they had absolutely no control. I mean, it was certainly, unfair in that way and unreasonable. But he's the owner; he can do whatever he wants to do. So yeah, there were times where we were called on the carpet, and he'd read us the whole while, tell us how awful we were and blah blah blah. Well, the bottom line is he didn't really fire us. He just, at one time, he cleaned out the whole, after I'd been head of the department for like 17 and a half years, he just cleaned out the whole program director's department. Didn't fire us, kept us at the same salaries. He just pushed us aside because he wanted younger people.
Mm.
So as sort of, he thought students 18, 19, 20 years old wanted to study with teachers who were like 21, 22, 23 years old. Because he was not a musician. I mean, I never knew a student who, and I wasn't that kind of a student. I wanted to study with somebody who had some experience, who had been through it, who give me the real information. And you can't teach experience. You got to go get it. Mm. And so he moved us out. Like I said, he kept us. We kept on teaching, so we weren't fired. I mean, he did strange, wonderful, crazy things, and certainly at the time, I mean, none of us thought it wasn't fair. There's nothing fair about it. It was his decision, and well, hey, I've still got a job, and I'm still getting paid, and I'm still doing what I love. And wow, I don't have any other responsibility other than showing up and teaching students. So it was also kind of, it's kind of neat in that sense. But yeah, I mean, that's about the only thing I really sort of comes to mind as something that didn't seem fair. And yeah, that's all I can really remember. Nothing stands out.
Yeah. So what can be concluded is that it's a lot about the money. That's where the things, where things can get, where you can run into trouble with some people, with employers.
Well, you want to feel you're being paid your worth.
Yeah.
And employers, my perception is, and I took at least business class in college, they want to get you, if they really want you, they want to get you at the lowest price they can get you. So that's their job, to get the best people at the lowest price. So they will, they will haggle. Yeah, money's usually pretty difficult.
Yeah.
We've been there for a long time, and I mean, there weren't any raises at MI in like 15 years. So it just, money always certainly has a certain amount of importance in everything. You don't want to feel that you're getting screwed.
No.
So it's you sometimes have those discussions, but I mean, other times, like at MI, it was there were no, you couldn't even have the discussion. The answer was no. Let's not waste our time talking. The answer was no. You're not getting a raise. Nobody's getting a raise. If you don't like it, there's the door. I mean, it really was that kind of a situation. And I'm pretty sure that's a situation in corporations that go on every day. We're not going to pay you anymore. If you don't like it, there's the door.
So it was a lot of getting used to it, you'd say. It is what it is.
Yeah, but definitely, you've got to, certain situations they are what they are, and you're not going to change them. And if you if it's not something you feel you can deal with, then you got to walk out the door.
All right. Well, I feel like it's about time to wrap up. I just want to ask if there's anything you want to add, anything I want to bring up might be relevant.
Well, hmm, I guess it would just be sort of my opinion. As I
Mm,
said, this business has changed so dramatically from when I started in it. Um, Hindsight, when I started in it, I always used to joke. I got in at the end of show business. It's not show business anymore. It's the concert business. Um, Show business was whatever Sammy Davis Jr. or Don Rickles, or they were acts and they entertained the people. There was, it's sort of maybe when Bob Dylan came in and started writing songs that really, meant something to people, thousands of people, millions of people, emotionally, like Blowing in the Wind, or, songs like that, and the world, of course, changed. Um, it, the entertainment business, to me, is just, they're all concert acts. They go out and they do their albums and they do their hits, and whether, that's not a bad thing. Um, I certainly, still go see people I love. But to get into this business for a young person, wow, you really gotta love it. You have to have that almost obsession. I always compare it um, to sports. We look at the Michael Jordans of the world, and Kobe Bryant's, and the Steph Currys, and the Tom Brady's, and I don't know any soccer stars. So Ronaldo's, he's a
Ronaldo.
giant. But I think younger kids don't necessarily look at how hard these people have worked. I mean, they're doing what they do 12, 14, 16 hours a day. They're shooting thousands of free throw shots. There's, I mean, it's just the work ethic in some of the athletes we see. Um, it's astounding.
Mm,
And when you look at musicians, if you look at especially, classical musicians, I mean, they're doing the same thing. They're practicing 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Uh, and you see whoever, the Herbie Hancocks, the Jaco Pastores, the musicians, Keith Jarrett, these guys didn't just put in, their half an hour in the morning on the piano. I mean, they fell in love. They caught, as I like to say, they caught the disease, and they have to do it. It's something you have to do, and you love it. Even when you hate it, you love it. It's the work ethic has never changed. The level you turn on YouTube and you see 8-year-old kids playing Jaco Pastorius stuff, playing Rachmaninoff, playing Bach.
mm.
It's astounding to watch, and they're everywhere. They're all over the world. So the competition and the levels just keep getting higher and higher and higher. And I mean, the heartbreaking thing is there's less and less jobs and more talent.
Mm.
So it's the thought of my grandchildren being musicians. That's kind of a scary thought. If you're doing it for a living, you're trying to actually, buy a home and support your family and raise your kids and get them through college and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's, but as an old guy, you probably noticed I'm an old guy. You know, it doesn't seem to be really much different in almost any business. You know, the technical business is so, you know, way beyond me. And you see people at such levels doing such amazing things, and the level just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. And of course, the jobs in the technical business are, you know, my perception is they're pretty wide open. There's a lot of them. But, you know, there'll be too many people for too few jobs somewhere along the line. Every business is tough. So, I mean, if you can do something you love and make a living at it, that is absolutely one of the greatest gifts on the planet. But if my grandchildren were wanting to become professional musicians, I'd be pretty terrified. It's like, you know, wanting to be an actor.
Mm.
You know, there's 150,000 people in the Screen Actors Guild. I'm one of them. 2% make 90% of the money. I mean, that's the reality. It's been like that since I started in the business. So many great actors and so few, you know, even with all the streaming things and everything, there's so few jobs. It's just really difficult. So I don't think we can have a world without the arts. I don't think it would be a world worth living in. We have to have them. We need them. We need them emotionally. We need them from just a joyous standpoint. So I hope my grandchildren love music and play an instrument and are computer geniuses. That would be, I guess, my closing statement.
Yeah, a very good closing statement. Very inspirational. Well, thanks a lot. I think that was quite a lot of good material, I think.
Well, hey, you know, if you need more, you know, we can do more anytime you want to.
Absolutely.
Give your mom and dad and your big brother my love.
I will. They actually said hi earlier from them.
I hope to get back over there one of these days.
Yeah, when things, well, if they'll ever go back to normal, you know, when it's normal enough.
Yeah. Well, good luck with your paper. Now, this is for your high school graduation. This is your final paper for your.
Yeah, final paper.
What's the plan after high school?
I'm not sure. I might continue studying music, I think, at least part-time. Because, I mean, it's what I love to do. It's what I do all the time. But I also don't want to get burnt out with it, so I'm taking it easy, you know.
There's an interesting thing that really happens before, you know, when we're learning our instrument, when we're playing with friends, forming bands, all that. That is such a joyous, fun thing to do. And there is a change when you become a professional. I mean, of course, there's maturity and there's growing older and there's all that stuff. But when I retired, I sort of really went back to almost my childhood, young teenager love for music. I can't get enough of it now. I mean, I go to every concert in town, you know, classical concerts, jazz concerts, pop concerts, anything. If I love the artist, and I go to a lot. And I just, play music, like I said, every day. And it's just, it's such a huge part of our life everywhere. I mean, you don't even have to be a musician. You remember the hit records from the era, whether it's the 50s or the 80s or the 90s, or, you remember certain eras of music and favorite artists. And yeah, the arts, just, there's nothing better.
Mm.
There's just nothing better. And I wish we treated our artists the way much more like Sweden or Denmark or Norway treat their artists. It's at least they can make a living at it. I know it's difficult there too, but at least the government supports them. And here it's basically you're on your own. Good luck.
Yeah.
Loki, it's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
It's great
It's been
seeing
great.
you. My God, you're a man. Jeez.
Well, if there's anything else, I can always email you.
Okay,
And
fantastic.
the paper will be written in Sweden, or in Swedish. So, I mean, might be a little hard for you if you wanted to read it, but
Well, it's okay because I don't want to read back the stuff I said about Musicians Institute.
yeah, no. Luckily, no names have been said, so it can all be kept under anonymous guise.
Okay. Well, good
Wonderful.
luck with it.
Thank you.
And let me know how it goes. And I'm always in contact with your mom and dad. And cool, man. Keep playing the drums.
Yeah. Have a good time.
My oldest daughter married a drummer.
Really?
He's a great, a terrific player, and that's the good news and the bad news. Because he's a drummer. Tough time.
All right. Well,
All right. I've enjoyed this.
yeah, me too. You take care.
You too, Loki.
Bye.
Bye-bye.